I usually receive a healthy amount of interest in any video reviews I do of car cameras. The last one that I reviewed was this V1000GS, and this included all the bells and whistles. It had GPS on it and 1080p, for example. So I thought it might be an interesting idea to see what you can get at the other end of the market, in the cheap car camera range. I've got an idea in my head of spending about £40, and I want to see what's the best bang that I can get for my buck. I had a bit of a shopping list of requirements that the camera had to meet, and those are as follows. So first off, the must-haves. It's got to be powered by the car 12-volt adapter. It's got to auto start and stop when I start and stop the car. It's got to loop its recordings and leave as little gap in between the recorded segments as possible. It'd be quite useful if it has a nice wide-angle lens and records in HD, and has some decent ways to mount it to the windscreen or elsewhere in the car. And it'd be nice if it was quite small so I could hide it out of the way. It's pretty unimportant to me what the frame rate is. It doesn't have to be perfectly smooth. I'm not interested in what the file format is either, or whether it's got an LCD screen, or if it can play back from the device itself. And really pointless to me is night vision. I'll explain more about this later, but it's a complete waste of time. And I'm also not interested in taking photos with it. I just want to record my car journeys. Right, so here's the camera that I ended up getting. I got it from eBay. It cost me approximately £40, delivered from Hong Kong. It comes with a 150-degree wide-angle lens and records in 720p. Here are some more specifications. You'll notice it records in AVI video file format, which I don't have much luck with in action cameras because it drops a lot of frames. But on something like this, it's not as important. It doesn't have to be perfectly smooth like I mentioned before. So let's have a look inside the box. It comes rather well packaged. As you can see here, I've got to peel quite a few bits of plastic off it, including off the lens there. Remember to do that if you get one of these, and off the screen. Here are the things that come inside the box when you get rid of all the packaging. These two things are for mounting it. I'll show you those in a bit. That's a USB A to Mini B lead. This is the car power adapter to USB Mini B lead. Here's the instruction booklet, which basically just has about one page and it isn't much use. Here's a disc for drivers, and here's the camera itself. So let's have a look around this in a bit closer detail. So there's the lens on the left, surrounded by the infrared night vision LEDs. I did mention I didn't really need infrared night vision, but it's got it on anyway. It's got 4 buttons around the screen there. There's a mounting hole at the top there and the bottom. You can mount it from the top or the bottom. Notice this switch on the left there. It says VGA and HD on that if you can't see. You slide it depending on which way you want to record. Now the lens is on this revolving section here. You can twist it all the way back round to face where the screen is, or all the way away and also down a little bit. So it's quite good for positioning it exactly where you want to in your car. And of course, looking at that screen, you can see where you're pointing it. On this end, we've got the micro SD card slot and the USB output. The micro SD card I'm using is this Samsung Class 10 16GB card. Let's switch it on and have a look. You'll notice at the top left there, we've got a blue LED lighting up, and then a nice welcome screen comes on. Now notice at the bottom of the screen here, it says I can record 5 hours 34 minutes in VGA mode. It says just above my finger there. So we'll slide it to the HD mode, and we can record 4 hours 50 in 720p HD. I'm going to talk you through the rather unintuitive operation of this camera, but don't worry about any of this because in reality you don't have to press any of these buttons. Now if we tap the bottom left one here that looks like a camera, surprisingly enough it takes a photo. It says it's 5 megapixels but it isn't, but don't worry about that. Tap the bottom right one, it starts the video recording. You can see the red digits counting upwards here, and I'll just give it a waggle so that we can see that later on. Tap the bottom right one to stop it recording. Right, we'll get into playback mode now. Now you don't just tap the play button at the top there, you have to hold it down for a second. Okay, so now we're in the playback mode. I'll get the box out of the way so you see that we're not showing a live feed from the camera. And then to jump between the clips, you tap the bottom left and right buttons, which have now moved into left and right arrows to get between the different clips. So we'll get to one that's got a video on it. You'll see here there's a picture of a little camera at the top right there. Press the play button now, and that'll play back that video clip that we just took before with the old waggle in it. There you go. So press play to stop. Tap the bottom right one to get into a photo, which you can see there's no picture of a camera on a tripod on that, so that's a photo. Tap the top right one now, and it zooms in. And it just keeps going and going and going until eventually you hold down the play button to get back to the record menu. See, I said it wasn't that clear. There's some more functions as well. If you hold down the camera button while it's in record mode, it turns the screen off, which might be useful if you find the screen irritating when you're driving along. And finally, if we start the camera recording by tapping the bottom right one again, if you hold down that button after you've started recording, you'll see this picture of a moon appear at the top. That means the night vision LEDs are on. Now you can't see that at the moment because they only come on when the conditions get dark enough for them. So we'll put the box back in here and try and film it with the lights off. So I'll just switch the lights off in the studio here. I say studio in the loosest sense of the word. It's more of a table. And there you go. There's the night vision. You can see my hand in front of the lens there. I'll just switch it off so you can see the difference. If we tap the record button again, or hold it I think, that takes the night vision off and you can see the difference, and hold it again to turn it back on again. Now I'll point it towards the camera. You can see there's purple LEDs. You can't actually see those in reality, and that little sensor at the top is the thing that switches them on and off depending on the ambient light. So there you go. Of course that made perfect sense, and there'll be an exam at the end of the video to see how much you remember. Right, now let's just have a look at those mounting options that we took out of the box earlier on. The first one is a usual suction cup type device with a ball joint on the end and this little plastic thing here that slides into the top or the bottom of the camera depending on whether you want it hanging down or pointing upwards. And it just slides in like that. It's quite a neat device, and it does hold it well to the window. Now the thing that I like about this one is it also comes with this little thing which also slides into that same mounting slot on the camera. It enables you to just sit it down on your dashboard like that. Now of course that base doesn't have any kind of suction cup on it or sticky back thingamajig, so you'd have to kind of stick it down, otherwise it would just slide across your dashboard. But I think that's quite a neat little device and stops you hanging wires down the middle of your windscreen. Talking of which, let's go and hang some wires down the middle of my windscreen. So I'm putting the suction cup one behind the mirror here, and as you can see I've got the wire just hanging down there. It's only a temporary job this, I'm not permanently installing it. I think if you were, you might try and route that wire around the outside edge of your windscreen, and there's quite a lot of wire supplied, so I think you better do that if you could really be bothered. So let's plug it in and see what happens. Now when I turn the ignition, the camera should start recording, and it isn't doing. So I had a jiggle about with that wire, the LED's on, but nothing at all's happening. So I swapped over the wire for one that I had from a TomTom sat-nav and tried it again. Switched the ignition on, LED's on, and this time success! The camera starts up. Notice the red LED at the right hand side there to show the power's coming through. And notice at the bottom of the screen the red numbers are counting up to show that it's recording. So the next thing to try out is what happens when I cut the power, like now for example. And we'll see how long it takes the camera to stop recording and switch off. I had a camera before like this that just carried on until the end of a 10-minute clip, which seemed a bit long. The camera does have a battery in it, so it can carry on for quite some time, but no, it shut down there about 20 seconds later, so that's just about perfect. So that wire that came with it is useless. I'm going to put that in the bin so I don't get it mixed up again in the future and think that it actually works when it doesn't. Anyway, we'll take the camera out on the road now and have a look. And I'm going to pass you over to our reporter out on the road to have a muffled word with you.
Right, I thought I'd better try and talk to see if my voice comes over well on the microphone. I think the microphone is the tiny little hole next to the screen on the back, so it's pointed in my direction, so hopefully you're able to pick up what I'm saying.
I don't know about you, but I can never understand what that guy says. He really does mumble too much. But the footage out on the road here I think is pretty decent. I mean, the sky's too bright and the colours are washed out, but we're not looking at visual fidelity here. We're really just trying to capture a decent record of what's going on in front of the car to use in the event of an incident to prove who was at fault, and I think this does quite a good job of that. Now just pay attention to this bit here. As I pull out of the junction, you'll notice a little jump in the clip right there. And that was the gap between the end of one 2-minute clip segment and the beginning of the next one. Now I'll just show that again in slow motion, so pay attention to the yellow bollard on the right here, and there's the jump, so you'll notice you've lost a few feet of footage of the road, perhaps just under a second's worth, which isn't bad at all for a camera of this price. Now that 150-degree wide-angle lens is getting a nice wide image here. You can see the buildings on both sides and the cars coming towards me, all the road markings that you need to see. It really is doing a pretty good job. It's getting all the information that you need to use in the event of a front-end shunt. Of course, it'd be completely useless if something happened at the back of the car, which is something you always need to bear in mind with cameras like this. Now the camera does tend to drop frames. It doesn't record at the full 30 frames a second it mentions on the box. It's probably more like 21, 22, but it's good enough. Now let's just have a look at the VGA mode. So here it is, and the first thing that you'll probably have noticed is that the screen ratio has gone into the 4:3 format rather than the 16:9 widescreen format of the 720p HD footage. But there isn't too much difference in the quality between the two. So what we'll do here, I'll just show you that there is a little bit of difference. We'll stop behind this car and we'll switch between them. So this is the VGA mode now, and then this is the HD mode. You'll notice it has actually got clearer, and then we'll flip back to VGA again where it's a little bit more misty. So it is a proper 720p HD camera rather than an upscale camera pretending to be HD. Now one area that no camera is going to really shine is recording in low light, especially not a cheap camera like this. What they tend to do is surround the lens with these infrared night vision LEDs, but they're completely useless in a camera like this, and I'll show you how. So here's the camera looking in my garage. I've got the lights off, there's my hand in front of the lens, and now we'll switch on the night vision, and you'll be able to see there the hands in front of the lens with the night vision lit, but the garage is exactly the same brightness as it was before. And that's with the night vision on there, and that's with it off. So you'll notice that you can't see any more, and more likely than not, all you're going to do with your LEDs is just cause glare off your own windscreen. So you can forget night vision LEDs on this camera and all other cameras like this. They're not going to light the road up in front of your car, however much you might want them to. I think we can probably agree that if you've been watching the footage while I've been blabbering on, you'll notice that it's not particularly good in low light. At least it doesn't get really grainy like some cameras, but it's pretty much too dark to be able to use as video evidence in the event of an accident. It's just lights coming past a camera. If Alan Wake had a driving game, it would probably look something like this. Now here's the night vision off, and just to prove that it's useless, let's switch it on. And there's the night vision on. You can't see any difference at all other than that flashing light on the dashboard, notice at the bottom there, and that's as I go under the lights, the sensor keeps switching the night vision on and off. So if you think that these tiny LEDs are going to light the road up in front of your car, you've got to ask yourself why cars come with lights that are this size. Now let's have a look at what's on that driver disc that came with the camera. Well, it's a PC disc, and on the disc are a number of files for using the camera as a webcam, which is something I didn't really want to do, but I thought I'd test out. So when you attach it via a USB cable and install the drivers, it's not recognised, so I didn't bother pursuing that any further. The other things that are on the disc are instruction leaflets, which are the same ones that are in the booklet and point you around the camera, as well as if you go in the Chinese section, you'll notice that it's got a time.txt file, and that's how you change the time on the camera. You edit the information inside that file and drop it onto the camera, start it up, and it changes the time to show the correct time, which you might have noticed wasn't showing during my video clips. Now also on the Chinese section of the disc, you notice it says DV362, so maybe that's the name of the camera. For those people that want to know, the video files are 2-minute segments only. You can't alter that. It's about 190 megs per 2-minute segment in an AVI file format that, according to Video Inspector, is motion JPEG at 1280 by 720, 30 frames a second. So overall then, this isn't a bad little camera at all. It does exactly what most people would need a camera like this to do. And that's to record the footage of what's going on in front of your car whilst you're driving along, and to auto start and stop when you start and stop the car. It's got a nice wide angle lens and decent quality HD video, unless of course you're recording at night time. Now I do have a bit of a problem with the fact that you have to change the time using a text file, and that means that you have to attach it to your computer, or at least have a computer to be able to change the time. You should be able to do that from the LCD screen. And of course I did have that faulty car power adapter that came with mine, and hopefully they don't all have one like that. But for a price of approximately £40 delivered to the UK from Hong Kong from eBay for a 720p car camera, you can't really complain too much. But I think I might be able to do even better than that, so I've spent another £40 on a different car camera that I think might be able to outperform this one. But for the moment anyway, thanks for watching.